I got a coffee in my Tim Tam mug. Who doesn't have Tim Tams? Best biscuits in the world, ever. No argument. Don't even write in. Don't leave comments. Irrelevant. Tim Tam all the way. Especially when you bite the corners off and suck the coffee through it. You can try it with penguins if you're in the UK. Same thing. Well, not the same thing, but you get the same effect. Right. I called this my amazing photography masterclass when I gave it to my colleagues at work. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it thinking about using phones better when you take photos. No, that doesn't work. How about getting a little bit better with your camera phone? Getting a little bit better with your smartphone? Just things to learn. So there's a few terms and conditions with that. And what I'm going to tell you is not sacrosanct. It's not definitive. It's not a rule. It's not live your life by it. It's just things I've thought about that I think could be helpful to those who are either coming to cameras from a smartphone, or those who only have a smartphone and actually are quite happy with that, but just want to get a bit of a better grasp on their photography. So let's go. First thing to say is, why do I do photography? Well, I do it because it's a creative outlet for me. My job is a systems engineer. That is a very process-driven job. There's not a lot of creativity in systems engineering. There's some drawing when you do architectures, but there's not really creativity in true creativity sense. And this gives me an outlet. What I'm going to tell you is not a quick fix or definitive, as I said in the intro. They're guides. They're to try and help you get a little bit better. But there is one rule that I live by, and that's the best camera is the one that you're carrying at the time. If you're carrying £6,000 worth of DSLR, great, that's the best camera you've got. If you're carrying an iPhone 4, that's the best camera you've got. You can do great images on almost anything from the last 10 years. Let's be honest. This fixation with the best gear, the newest gear, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to take better images. It just means you're going to take images with newer kit, kit with more life in it. So just think about that before you do anything. And the other thing to say is, what are you trying to do with what you capture? Are you trying to create art? Are you trying to create memories? Or are you trying to take snapshots? Because they're very different. They're different purposes. But let's go through some examples, and I'll talk you through them, and we can kind of work our way through a couple of slides of examples. So here we've got a classic Ansel Adams. It was done on an 8x10 glass plate, 1960. So we're talking now 61 years ago. Still an iconic image. He will still have done a little bit of darkening and lightening on that slide. He will have still have had somebody cart his camera up to the viewpoint where he wanted to shoot the half dome with the moon. And yeah, that's 61 years ago. On the other side of this slide, what you've got is a couple of entries to the iPhone Photography Awards, one from 2012, which is by Jimmy Mazza. It's an iPhone 4 shot of a couple of kids in a car. And then you've got one from this year, shot on an iPhone X by Artem Barishaw. I hope I got that right. I'm really sorry if I got that wrong. Of somebody painting a stripy wall. They're both regarded as credible shots. One is more famous than the other two, but they're both they're all award winners. Here are some more shots from competitions from this year. A lovely shot of a jetty jutting out into a lake with a bit of mist and that lovely light glow on the clouds, a kind of a shot that I'd love to get. And likewise, there's the shot of the frogs with the bouquet, just lovely and smooth, and those two frogs just sat there probably about to get it on, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? And the last one is from, I think it's the Women in Photography Awards, talking about teaching women in one of the, I think it's the West African countries, to swim, because there's a very high rate of mortality from women who go and do the fishing. And actually just teaching them to swim has an amazing effect on their confidence. And I'm telling you a story. And that's what a good photo does. There's a story behind it. There's something that really engages you. And that photo, it may be 4 women lying on their backs in the sea holding on to plastic bottles, but it tells a story and it speaks to me. But it's not always clear what is art. 2 photos, again, from competitions this year. We have one that is a classic fine art, long exposure. This jetty going out into the sea, probably at high tide, the water smooth, the clouds all silky. And then we've got sunset with a Fred Perry long sleeve shirt in front of a pyrocanthus bush. They're both credible, they've both won or been acclaimed in competitions this year. And they're both art. You might not think they're art, you might go, that's absolute rubbish. But that's surely the purpose of art, is to have an opinion, is to make you think. So yeah, I just wanted to put some examples in there so you kind of see what you could achieve. And a lot of the time, I would say half of those shots are probably with smartphones. Just think about all those images. They've all been planned. The photographer's taken time over them. They've thought about it, he and she have thought about it. So there's a so what there. And I think that there's a saying, don't take it, make it. And that's quite a good one to live by, is to think about your shot and consider how time plays into that shot. I mean, if we talk about the technology that we have today, I have my iPhone XS here, perfectly capable, very good. But smartphones are quite interesting from a technology point of view. There's a lot of hidden technology in them that you don't realise exists. The process has become incredibly simplified for the user, because that is the user experience, is that you open the app, press the button, you capture a great image. Now, in capturing a great image, or what you could consider to be a great image, there's a lot of computational photography goes on in terms of what they do to the image, the manipulation. You don't see an original, it's what the processors have done to it. And there's the ability to be very creative with filters in apps that will change the saturation and change the contrast and the vignetting, and you can do all sorts of things that allow you to play around with changing your perspective on the world. But many people have ended up with hundreds of gigabytes of photos. How many of those do they look at? Is it the last one, the last 10? Is it 5 across the years? So really the point of this is, when do you stop and think about what you're taking? When do you actually go, right, I'm going to think about this image, I'm actually going to think about what I'm capturing. As you see in this, as Adam said, there are always 2 people in every picture, the photographer and the viewer. You holding the phone, me holding this up, holding this up, get it the right way around. I've got somebody on the other side of this. Either I'm taking them or they're going to view it. So I need to consider them in the process. So really, the first tip is learn how to use this. Learn how to use this device. What are the settings? If you're just going to press the button, you'll get a snapshot. If you're going to create something worthy, I would suggest that you need to slow down. Take your time. Unless this is a once in a lifetime moment and you've just got to get your phone up and go, that was my sound of a shutter. Unless you've got once in a lifetime, take your time. Think about the story you're trying to tell. Think about what this image is going to convey to the person who looks at it. If you can slow down and if you can think about the story, you'll immediately make an improvement. because you'll stop rushing. You'll stop letting the computational photography elements take over from the human cortex elements, the brain. And that's the first point of this couple of videos that I'm going to put out. The first point is just slow down. Take your time. It's fine. Think about the story. Maybe wait a couple of minutes. Maybe you've got a scene in the city and you just want a person in the right place. Stand and wait. What's the worst that can happen? Unless you're late for a meeting, nothing. Think about the composition. What's the relationship between the objects in your image? If you've got a man doing that compared to a man doing that, do you need this in it? Is it important to what you're trying to tell? And then think about how you're going to frame your photos. How you're going to crop them. And we can talk about that a bit more. I'll talk about composition and cropping probably in the second part of this, because I just want to make this a fairly short video. There are a couple of other things that we can think about when we're doing our story and slowing down. One is to consider the conditions. For instance, on a very bright day, you might go in black and white so you can really capture all the contrast and the dynamic range in a scene, perhaps to improve your story a bit by going to black and white. You might be taking a photo of people and they're walking along. Well, don't cut their feet off, because you'll lose something in the image by not having their feet. So think about where you perhaps crop a person or an animal or a tree even. So perhaps sometimes you've got to move about a bit to get the angle that really suits your photo. Look at the background. What's in the background? If what you've got in the background is a lovely clean background, that will probably work a lot better for a portrait than having a really messy, maybe taking a photo at a fun fair and your child's up against a really messy background. And actually, if you turn them 90 degrees, you can just look straight down a clear avenue and get a much better photo of them, but the same location. Look around the edge of your image. Is there anything distracting around the edge of your image that's not going to help you tell your story? And the last point is, don't overlook the mundane, because sometimes the mundane is actually what we forget about. And Craig Roberts made a good point that he takes photos of power lines because someone has to record them. They are a man-made impact on the environment, and they might not always be there, but perhaps you need to record those mundane things. I didn't really want to talk about gear in this at all. It doesn't really matter what you've got. The best camera is the one you have with you. So if you have an iPhone, an Android phone, a compact camera, a mirrorless camera, a DSLR, fine. That's what you've got. Learn how to use it, make the best of it. But slowing down and thinking about the story applies to all of those. Now with a smartphone, there's a couple of things you can do to help yourself. I always advocate Snapseed as the editor. It's so intuitive and so brilliant, and it's free. So what's not to like? There's another one called Spectre for iOS that allows you to do kind of long exposure, kind of time lapse, which is good. And if you're on Android, I think Open Camera or FV5 Lite camera can also help you get a bit more control of the camera, and allow you to really get into setting the aperture and the white balance and all these other things. So that's the first part of this little thinking about photography from a beginner's point of view. Maybe I'll call it that. Photography from a beginner's POV. Could work. But I just wanted to kind of share what I told my colleagues, because actually there's nothing rocket science in this. As I say, it's not definitive. I'm not decreeing anything. I'm just trying to help. If you don't like what I've said, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. But if you go out today and you get a better photo, then good job, well done, because that's what this is about. Just get out there, take photos. The only way you're going to improve is practice. Just sometimes don't hold the shutter down to get 30 shots. Just take your time, get one shot and go, I'll edit that tomorrow because I think that's quite a nice shot. So Thanks for now, and I'll capture you. Capture you? I won't capture you. Goodness me. I'll catch you in the next bit of this. Cheers for now. Bye.